What is a ratio? A ratio is the quantitative relationship between two amounts showing the number of times one value contains or is contained within the other. What does this mean? Let's take an example. Suppose we have a school which has a total of 1,000 pupils, 1,000 students, and out of the 1,000 students, let's say 400 are boys and 600 are girls. Now, as we said here, a ratio is the quantitative relationship. Now, if I were to ask you, what is the ratio of boys to girls? Well, that would quite simply be boys to girls is 400 to 600. And we can simplify that by finding a common factor. So the common factor that goes into the largest common factor that goes into both of them is 200. So if we divide by 200, we have 2, 2, 3. Now, what does this mean here? This means that for every 2 boys in this school, there are 3 girls. So for every 2 boys, there are 3 girls. So out of the 1,000 students, for every 2 boys, there are 3 girls. This is the relationship between boys and girls. Now notice that this is a quantitative relationship, and to understand a quantitative relationship, think about a qualitative relationship. I want you to see the difference between a quantitative relationship and a qualitative relationship. Now, if we were to describe a qualitative relationship between boys and girls, we could just say that the girls are more than boys. In other words, what we mean by a qualitative relationship, we are describing the relationship between boys and girls in terms of words. Whereas in a quantitative relationship, we are describing the relationship between boys and girls in terms of numbers. So here we have a question where we are sharing an amount according to a ratio. So the question is, Suera and Carla share £10 between them in the ratio 2 to 3. How do we do this question? Well, first of all, we need to write their respective ratios. So if we let S represent Suera and C represent Carla, Suera to Carla, the ratio is 2 to 3. Now, what are the steps here? Step 1, we need to add the ratios up. 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. Step 2, we divide the total amount there by the sum of the ratios. So we do £10 divided by 5, which is equal to 2. And then step 3, for each of them, we multiply this amount here by their respective ratio. So for Suera, it will be 2 times 2, which is £4. And for Carla, it will be 3 times 2, which is £6. the last thing we need to do is to check that the amounts that we've worked out, do they add up to the total amount of £10? Well, as you can see here, clearly 4 plus 6 is £10, which adds up to the total amount there, which is £10. So that's how we know that we've done the question correctly. Now, if you're really smart, you could have done this in fewer steps, where after doing step 1, where you added up the ratios, then in step 2, for each of them, you could have done the calculation in one go. So for Suera, it would be the total amount £10 divided by the sum of the ratios 5 multiplied by Suera's ratio. So the answer is £4. And for Carla, again, similarly, the total £10 divided by the sum of the ratios 5 multiplied by her ratio 3, and you get £6. I just want to give you a summary of the steps. So summary. Step 1, we add up the ratios. Step 2, we divide the total amount by the sum, by the sum of the ratios that we calculated in step 1. And step 3, we multiply what we calculated in step 2 by each of the respective ratios. So what we mean here in step 1, when we say we add up the ratios, is that here the ratios were 2 to 3. We add them up in step 1, so 2 plus 3 is 5. And in step 2, we divide the total amount by the sum of the ratios. So the total amount was £10, and we divide the total amount £10 by the sum of the ratios 5, and we get an answer of 2. Now this answer of 2 we use in step 3 when we say we multiply each of the by each of the respective ratios here. So here Suera's respective ratio was 2. We multiply Suera's ratio 2 by the answer we got in step 2 to work out her amount. And for Carla, her ratio was 3, and we multiply 3 by the amount we got in 2 to get Carla's amount. Okay, so here it says that a school has a total of 950 pupils. So this is the total. 400 pupils are boys and the rest are girls. Complete the line below to show the ratio of the number of boys to the number of girls. Okay, so if there are 950 pupils in total and 400 pupils are boys, then the rest should be girls. So we just write this down. There are 950 pupils in total, so that's the total. And 400 of the pupils are boys. If we subtract them, 5 take away 0 is just 5, and 9 take away 4 is 5. So that gives you the number of girls. Okay, so now, quite clearly, the ratio of the boys to the girls, so boys to the girls, will be 400 to 550. Now, is this the final answer? No, because we can simplify this. How do I know how do we know that we can simplify this? Well, because we can clearly see we can divide both of them by a common factor and simplify this. So think of the largest common factor that goes into both of them. I can see, all right, so to make it easy, let's do it in steps. So if we divide by, let's say, 10 first, if we divide by 10, I find it easier to do it in steps. So if we divide it by 10, 400 divided by 10 becomes 40. 550 divided by 10 becomes 55. Now, what can we divide these two numbers by? Well, clearly 5 goes into both of them. 40 divided by 5 is 8. And 55 divided by 5 is 11. Can I simplify it any further? No, I can't, because there is no common factor of 8 and 11. So that is my final answer. In a competition, there are 3 prize winners: first, second, and third. The organisers have £60 to spend on the prizes. They decide to split the money up in the ratio 3 to 2 to 1. The first gets the most expensive prize, and the third gets the least expensive prize. The question is, how much money is spent on each prize? So what they're asking us to do is to work out how much do each of the prize winners get. What does the first prize winner get? What does the second prize winner get? And what does the third prize winner get? The first thing that we need to do is to write the respective ratios. So first, second, third. Now, I've seen many students make this mistake. How do we match the ratios here? Well, think about it logically. It clearly says here the first gets the most expensive prize. So if the first gets the most expensive prize, therefore, the first should have the largest share of the ratios, right? So by using a bit of common sense, the ratios will be 3 to 2 to 1 in this order. Now remember, the first step, also the thing that we clearly need to highlight here, is that the total amount to be shared is £60. Now, step 1, what do I need to do? I need to add up the ratios, so 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is equal to 6. Step 2, I need to divide the total amount, £60, by the sum that I have just worked out in step 1, so by 6. This gives me 10. And then now, in the final step, step 3, to work out what each of them get, I need to multiply what I have worked out in step 2 by each of their respective shares. So, the first prize winner, their amount will be 3 times 10, which is £30. Second prize winner is 2 times 10, which is £20. And the third prize winner, they get 1 times 10, which is £10. How do we check that our answers are correct? We'll check that do all of these amounts add up to the total amount of £60? Well, clearly it does. That's how we check our answers. A length of wood is cut into two smaller lengths in the ratio 3:2. The smaller length is 60 centimeters long, and the first part of the question asks us, how long is the larger length? Well, first of all, let's understand what is happening here. A length of wood is cut into two smaller lengths in the ratio 3:2. Now, I want you to imagine that this is a length of wood. I apologize for my bad drawing, but just imagine this is a length of wood, and it is cut in the ratio 3:2. So it's cut in the ratio 3:2. Now, obviously, if it's cut in the ratio 3:2, one part of the length will be longer than the other part because the amount there is greater than that. So it may be something like this here, where this part is your 3 part, and this is your 2 part, and this is your 3 part there. Now, then they tell us that the smaller length is 60 centimeters long. So this means the smaller length here is 60 centimeters long. So 60 centimeters long, that's your smaller part. And the question is asking us, how long is the larger length? So if this part is 60, according to this ratio, how long will this part be? Well, the thing that we need to do here, we need to see what is the relationship between 2 to 60. Well, clearly the relationship, the multiplier there is times 30. So again, all we need to do is we need to multiply the 3 by 30 by the same multiplier. 3 times 30 is 90. So then the larger length will be 90 centimeters, and that's your answer to part A. So now we know that this part is 60 centimeters and the other part is 90 centimeters. So let's write this down. So this part is 60 centimeters and this part is 90 centimeters. Part B asks us, what was the length of the original piece of wood? Well, the original piece of wood, to find the length of the original piece of wood, we just need to combine the lengths. In total, 90 plus 60 is just 150 centimeters. And that's your answer to part B. Two local primary schools join forces to have a school fair. There are 300 pupils in the first school and 400 in the second. So some key information here, we need to underline this. So 300 pupils in the first school and 400 in the second. And then it says they decide to share the proceeds in the same ratio as the number of pupils in each school. So what they're saying here is that the proceeds, which means the money that they make, they will share the proceeds, the money that they make, according to the number of pupils they have. Right? Okay? So let's write this down. The first school has 300 students, and the second school has 400 students, and so they will share the proceeds according to the number of students that they have. So that is the ratio that they will share the amount that they make according to this ratio. Now, whenever we have a ratio, we need to simplify the ratio. So clearly we can divide both of them by 100, so we get 3 to 4. So what we understand here is that the amount of money that they end up making in the fair, they will share this amount in this ratio, 3 to 4. So which school gets the most money then? Well, clearly it's the second school, because they have more students and they have the larger share of the ratio. Now in part B it says they make a profit of £350. So they make a profit of £350. What does this mean? Meaning that at the end of the fair they counted all the money and they saw that after taking away all the costs, the profit that they have is £350. The £350 is your proceeds. Now, how much money does each school get? So the £350 that you have here, you will share this now according to this ratio, the agreed upon ratios. So let's do this. So step 1. What is the first step when we are sharing an amount according to a ratio? We need to add up the ratio. So 3 plus 4. I'm adding up the ratios that we have there. So 3 plus 4 is 7. And then step 2. I divide the total amount. What is my total amount here? Well, my total amount is the £350. The £350 is my total amount, right? So I divide the £350 by the sum of the ratios I worked out in part 1. So I divide £350 by 7. Now what's 350 divided by 7? Well, 35 divided by 7 is 5, and we just add the 0, so that's 50. Now, the last step, step 3. What does each school get? Well, the first school, we need to multiply its ratio by the amount that we've worked out here. So for the first school, it's just 3 times 50, and that's £150. And for the second school, we need to multiply its ratio 4 by 50. And 4 times 50, that's 200. And as you can see, the second school gets more. And to check that we haven't made a mistake, do these amounts total to the amount that we have here? Yes, it does. It totals to £350. That's how we know that we haven't made a mistake. Okay, so Miranda carries out a survey. She counts the different vehicles passing her school over a period of 1 hour in the morning. The numbers of vehicles she counted were 15 buses, 60 vans, 75 lorries, and 150 cars. The question is, write the ratio of the different types of vehicles in its simplest form. Right, okay, so what are the different types of vehicles? We have buses, vans, lorries, and cars. And for each of these categories, the amounts that she observed, the numbers that she observed, were 15 buses, so that's 15 there, vans, 60 vans, 75 lorries, and 150 cars. Now, you must remember, always simplify your ratios wherever it's possible. Is it possible here to simplify these ratios? Yes, because I can see there is a common factor here. What is the common factor? Well, first of all, to make our lives easier, we can do it in steps. I can clearly see that 5 goes into all of them. So if I divide it by 5, 15 divided by 5 is 3. 60 divided by 5, it's 12. 75 divided by 5 is 15, and 150 divided by 5 is 30. Now, can I simplify it any further? Well, yes, I can. I can see that 3 goes into all of them. So if I divide by 3, 3 divided by 3 is 1, 12 divided by 3 is 4, 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 30 divided by 3 it's 10. Now the question is, can I divide it? Can I simplify it any further? No, I can't, because there is no number that goes into all of these numbers. And I can see that this is in its simplest form, because wherever you have a 1, then this means the ratio is in its simplest form. You cannot simplify it any further.